What's up, YouTube? We back with another video. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are feeling blessed out there. Today's topic is going to be context and why context matters. Before you could give this unsolicited opinion, before you can already start judging whether you're in person, whether you see something online, the context of the situation and why somebody's choosing an exercise, why it looks that way, why they're using that modality matters. Before I even dive deeper, the first thought that comes to my mind, and I think it's a decent way, it's not the only way, but a decent way to kind of view the situation is to look at it with a dual perspective, one outside of just your own. I think when you have that ability to be malleable, to be able to understand, okay, I can see your point of view from that. And if you disagree, so be it. But at the same time, you may actually take that step forward to do that action and be like, wait a minute, I actually do kind of change my stance. And that's cool. There's growth in both sides of the coin. There's also an appropriate and inquisitive approach that can further the dialogue of the conversation or make it more so like, okay, like we can kind of piece this together to understand what was the point of that? Why'd you think that way? Or that looks different. Or, maybe I see a little bit of a thing. Do you mind if I give a suggestion? Or even if I'm thinking of the suggestion, does it even matter to that person's situation? But back to why context matters. A lot of the time we see something, we'll see a couple reps of a video, we'll see a certain way that somebody's executing a specific movement, whatever the case is. The main thing is whatever they are doing, if it's conducive and working for them, if it's something that's working between the coach and them, that's all that matters. So your opinion, your comment, whatever the case is, like if it's not moving the needle for that individual, you're just kind of just spewing to get that off your chest. And it's great. But at the same time, I also want you to realize, like, what does that do for you? More times than not, if you don't have that perspective, if you don't have that mind frame of, you know what, I don't know this client's training history. I don't know certain things that they actually don't really care for. Maybe they, hit a certain, target muscle group or elicit a certain adaptation or a certain response. And maybe that's not the one that moves the needle for them because they don't really care to have a crazy amount of ankle dorsiflexion. They just need enough to be able to do their daily activities, be able to do their sport. Maybe they want a little bit more just so they have enough of a reserve to be able to have mobility, flexibility, whatever. I'm just using that as an example. But sometimes it's also, not sometimes, it is just specific to the individual. People sometimes will just get this one little box and then they hold on to it and like that's the whole frame. And it's like you gotta back out of that like 30,000 foot view, So I think sometimes we latch on to the one little thing that we see without asking questions. The number one thing is asking questions and then getting to the bottom of it. But even regardless of getting into the bottom of it, is it moving the needle for you? Like the person viewing, the person watching, the person commenting, the person thinking in a gym of why are they doing this? Why? For what? Like, is it making a change for you psychologically and physically? If not, I don't really think the 2 cents is needed unless, of course, somebody's asking and they're looking for guidance. That's a whole different conversation. And I would hope that we're more supportive and empowering, to help each other up, lift each other up as far as our brothers and our sisters, whether a stranger or somebody that you know. But I think it's very easy from a keyboard standpoint to be able to be like, I have this opinion. Like, I don't know if it was really asked. There's not much efficacy or evidence showing that you know what you're talking about. You're just spewing it with very little understanding of the back end side of this, like what it's doing for the person. Again, their training history, their relationship with this movement. Maybe there's a whole other spectrum of movements that they can execute, but they're not really focused on it. They just want to focus on basics and fundamentals, and they just stay with the tried and true and just stick with that. Sure, variation and being able to mix up planes of motion and the way certain fibers run and all these other intricate pieces of information are great. Just so they don't feel like they're utilizing or in an overuse situation, whatever the case is, great. But back to the point I mentioned a couple minutes ago, whatever is conducive and working for them, that's getting them a result, that's all that matters. There's so many topics within this healthcare space where I feel like a lot of opinions are going to be pushed. Of course, when it comes to propaganda, marketing, and things of that nature, that's where you're really going to see certain cults, if you will. I could go on and on about specific topics. One that I know is pretty prevalent, especially across like sports and athletes, is injury prevention. Regardless if it's for athletes or general population, whatever the case is, again, understanding context is going to be important. If anybody's pushing or selling this whole like, buy my guide, do this, so you're pain free, like it's just not realistic. It's not. No matter if you're doing all the movements that are helping you become, a better version of yourself, you're increasing your threshold and what forces you can absorb and produce, all these great things. You can have a few moments of weeks of a lot of stress, psychologically, not in the right frame of mind, minimal sleep, and maybe not the same amount of calories you've been consuming, but still having that basis or foundation of training, and run yourself into a situation where you stress the system and boom, something happens. Or even something better, going back to the sports conversation. I could be doing everything from false steps to a whole bunch of soleus raises to all these things, from having wedges under my feet. And of course, those are things that are going to be beneficial and conducive. Let's say we're talking about sports for somebody that's got to, cut and push off and take a negative step. For basketball, I'm talking about like your Achilles. But if somebody puts you in a certain situation that you cannot replicate in the gym, no matter if you add some sort of weight, no matter if you add a medicine ball, no matter if you add a barbell, whether you're doing a body weight, whatever the case is, there are certain forces and certain emotions and certain tasks, no matter the constraint, that you just cannot duplicate unless you are playing the sport. If somebody is in a situation where somebody falls, trips, and they're going really fast at somebody's foot, and they got to take a negative fall step that they've done 1,000 times, but it's maybe in a position that they haven't done, or maybe it is in a position that they've done so much, but they've been hammering it since they were like in middle school and now they're 30, they still can injure themselves. Sometimes, again, from the context standpoint, people will immediately go to that professional athlete or a collegiate athlete and be like, their trainer stinks or that coach stinks. And it's like, context, like, maybe that's something that's guarded for that person. Maybe they've done everything that they can do to put them in a space where they're much stronger and they are going to be more durable, but it still can't be duplicated or replicated in a gym setting. And that's just what it is. So before you have this opinion of whatever the case is on something you see or a player or the way something is performed for even a general population client, like there's so many factors that go into the pot. And even if you go in with this mindset of, I'm going to do 10 out of 10, check off every box, and I'm going to just be safe, it's not possible. Stress continues to pop up, whether psychologically in our life or just physical stress. There's certain things that no matter how much you prepare, you still cannot be prepared for, and that's okay. The mind frame shift, or the better way to look at it, is like, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. There's multiple ways to get from point A to point B. There's multiple ways to be able to approach pain. Not necessarily guard or fear from it, but know that I'm putting myself in a positive situation to where I am stronger and I'm more resilient and I'm more robust and I can handle the stressors that are coming my way, whether life stress, and building up myself with the armor physically and mentally and emotionally, and being confident that you can navigate it no matter what happens. Some of those things are going to be inevitable. The more that you put yourself in a mind frame of, I can handle the fires and the things that come my way, the more you're going to be able to overcome or get over that hurdle quicker. The more you put yourself in this, like, I'm going to reach this certain peak or level and I'm just never going to have to worry about anything, is the wrong mind frame. So when somebody just, again, gives this one-off kind of piece of information based off of one thing that they see specific to the injury prevention conversation with sports, it's just like, one, what is that doing? Is that even helping? What is the solution? Again, going back to trying to be open-minded, have dual perspectives, whatever you are in the mind frame of suggesting, whether if you're going to go with the route of it's just a specific exercise or it's a specific method, I already know we're not in the right conversation. Like, this one size fits all for, specifically back to the sport thing, these people are the cream of the crop and they still can run into these things because stress is stress. So thinking that you're going to just be able to be like, well, they have to train in this certain way and they have to maneuver their fashion this way. I'm not trying to dig. I'm just being real. Like, if you just have this one, it goes back to the whole propaganda marketing point and going into why that's not the end all be all solution. So from a comment standpoint, from a judgment standpoint, from a whatever it is, if you're just honing in and boxing in to that one thing, I'm just saying, I'm not telling, but I am saying it may be more conducive for you to kind of look at it with a different perspective and different view. If you don't agree with it, cool. You can keep that here. You want to share your opinion, also be comfortable with people sharing it back and maybe being able to be like, all right, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can hear it or understand it. I think that's growth. If you don't choose to do so, by all means, do what you do. But yeah, more times than not, nobody needs to hear all that. Straight up, like, nobody really needs to hear all that. Do what works for you. If somebody's maybe asking for that assistance or guidance, great. Still doesn't fit every single person that you get. Every individual that you work with or you see is unique and different. Simple as that. So understand the context matters behind the situation. Understand that, there's not just one way of doing this. There's not just one form. There's not just one exercise. There's not just one diet plan. There's not just one method. There's not just there's multiple ways. You have your principles and things you stand on, things that are, going to be back, tried, and true. And you want to stick with them. But it doesn't mean that it's still going to be the right fit glove for every hand. May be different. Maybe somebody missing a pinky, can't even fit it. It's just what it is. And I feel like the more that we start to adopt that mentality, the more growth can be had. So that's all I got on that topic as far as context. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'm going to catch y'all next time. Peace.